So today's the second day of the retaliation of the world against Trump and the tariffs. We saw today's the end of is Friday, end of business, close of business, the Dow, Nasdaq, S&P, etc. 10% in correction. JP Morgan is talking about a 60% chance of recession, etc. So I have to ask you, Mitra,
Yeah.
what's this all about? Is it really about um, American manufacturing back in America? I kind of think we both agree no. What is Trump playing at? Because it's not, he's not playing at the tariff.
Yeah,
He's doing something else.
it's just
Um, so go ahead. Yeah.
it's interesting. I'm not exactly clear why he would do something like this because obviously this is not 1950s. You're not going to get the manufacturing back. And by the way, it depends on which manufacturer, like you said a million times, right? Everything we make today, it's virtually made someplace cheaper. So even if you bring it here, you're not going to be able to succeed at it because you have to pay higher labor. You don't even have those things anymore. Thanks to artificial intelligence and technology, what you used to take 50 people to do it, now you only need maybe five. So you're not expanding the employment sector. And you have a huge service industry. And service industry pays more money than manufacturing. I've always felt manufacturing is very important. But I also think it depends what type of manufacturing. You're not going to make any money by making t-shirts or shoes or socks. You could make like farm equipment and you can make some cars. But even with that, you have to be honest with yourself. We don't have the natural resources like we used to do 70 years ago. You need those natural resources. And so when you go to trade war with everybody at the same time, I think you're sending a message that, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to take it on, but you can't take it on because you don't have the ability to do that. So I think the president understands things are not going well. And he's correct. There is a new world order emerging. There's no denying that. We've been saying that for a number of years. But how you do it is the key. So when you have China come in and say, I'm going to put 34% tariff, but I give it till April 10th, but still it's important. When you have President Macron of France just saying, we're also going to put some type of a tariff, we're not going to invest in the US. I believe this comments was a few hours ago. We are not going to invest in the United States. We just can't afford it. Also, part of that has to do with the immigration policy. European companies are scared that their employees could go to prison for making a comment that the president doesn't like or it's against foreign policy. So there's no denying you will get a couple of smaller nations to agree so you can say, I won, woohoo. But as a whole, major nations don't need to put with this up. They don't need to put up with the US. And so if you're going after China, if you're going after Indonesia, if you're going after Malaysia, it's not really, going to work. Yes, you can go to McDonald Islands or the islands where the penguins are, and you could say, okay, I'm going to put 30% sanction, but
Yeah,
you're not going to pull that off with China. You're not going to pull that off.
but that's what I'm asking. And this is exactly what I'm saying. This is
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's not about the tariffs, it's not about the unfairness, because we have to be honest here. It is unfair. We sell X and Y and Z, and we pay 30+% on that export. They sell us A, B, and C, and they pay 10% export. So it is unfair. It's not balanced. The whole thing is not balanced. So in that respect, he's right. And he's right because he says, why are we allowing them to charge more for
Mhm.
their imports rather than our exports? I have two answers. Perhaps it's just very simple math, and that is
Right.
nobody wants the shit we have. Pardon me. Maybe they
No,
don't.
no, I understand. They don't want it.
But on the other side, I think there's something else here because look, let's be really honest. I read today that the company Temu, Temu.
Yes, Timu,
Temu.
Timu. Yeah. Who doesn't? Yeah,
Yeah, they're cheap, they're fast, they're pieces of
that's right.
crap, in my opinion, but whatever. They're going to go bust because their whole psychology and their whole reason for being raison d'être, is because they're cheap and fast and yada yada. Now with all these imports, no one's going to buy that stuff. So I think there's an issue. There is something quote unquote positive, meaning that I think Trump is saying, look, knock it off, make it a little bit more balanced. But my problem with him is that he makes this huge announcement in the Rose Garden. Everybody panics, the markets die.
Yeah.
Instead of really picking up the phone and saying, hey, Vietnam, you're doing this, we're doing that. Let's make a deal. I thought he was the deal maker. So
right. I understand what you're saying. I think there's three problems here. Number one is that, first of all, trading balances matter because sometimes they just don't have, they don't need what we have. It's sort of like, and they cannot utilize it. So you just can't look at the numbers. If I just go back to Temu, by the way, Temu wasn't because of crap. Temu was about when they bring it in, they don't pay, if it's under $500 for post office, they don't have to pay taxes on it. That's what mostly Temu is about. But then also when you go to China, or when you go to Vietnam, you can go, there are some trade imbalances, but the US gets other benefits, particularly with Europe. And that other benefit was when the United States says, I want to put sanctions on Iran, they say, okay, we'll do it with you. There's no free lunch. They did that because they're getting financial benefits someplace else. There's no, if you want to get something, you have to pay for something. So you've got to go to beyond this traditional, why are we given this? You can't have everything you want all the time. So you have to take a look at that as well. So you have to say, okay, all right, you have a little bit trading balance, but I want you to have my back. And they do have you back all the time. They're like, all right, we go to the sanctions with you. We go to tariffs with you. But I think the biggest problem for all of this was, like you said, the manner. I think the president should have prepared the public. He should have came up and said, listen, we have these problems with these nations. I'm going to give him 6 months. Let's see what you got. Who's going to negotiate with me? Who's not going to negotiate with me? But when you, or whatever, 3 months, whatever it is, at least get the public ready.
All right, but think about exactly what you just said, because what did he just do today regarding TikTok? He said, we're going to give it 75 more days, which is or whatever, to decide. And I'm like, why can you do that for TikTok?
Right.
Where there's no huge imbalance and world problem of the economy.
Yes, I think so. That's why.
Not this. Why is it?
You're right. I think someone dropped the ball on this one. Sometimes I wonder if these individuals who are telling Mr. Trump, go ahead and do this, are giving him a sound advice on purpose or not. Because somebody should have told, you have to ask, this is not a conspiracy theory, but you have to ask yourself, why would he do it so quick? You could have come up and said, look, I'm telling the international community, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, at least negotiate. Now, when you go quickly, yes, you will get maybe, 185 nations, maybe 20% say will negotiate with you, but it won't have a financial impact as much as you think. But major players like India, like China, like Indonesia, like France, like Germany, they will tell you no. So when you have the French President Macron coming in and saying, we're not going to invest. When you have that head of the European Union lady, Miss Ursula, come up and say, we can't go on like this. You are creating animosity and enemies which you do not need. And given the current environment in international order, be in Middle East, be in Asia, you really need your allies. So, and I think that, the public is just panicking, and that was my fear. I think the stock market will go up. I understand that. But when Canada comes in today and says, I'm going to put 25% tariff on you as well, come on. You can't blame the Canadians either. So I think it's the way it came out.
Did you see not only that, the point is exactly what you're saying. It's not necessarily even the money or just the throwback. What it is that all the snowbirds from Canada who usually come to Florida and spend time here and rent apartments and this and that are not coming.
No, they're not coming.
there's many ways to say screw
F you.
everybody. And
Yeah.
and it's interesting to me that
Yeah.
even now, Rand Paul and Chuck Grassley
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Ted Cruz
Yes. And what is this?
are like pissed off. And
Yeah.
because they know, the problem is they know that they're getting phone calls day in and day out
Day
saying,
out.
you don't do this, change this shit, you're not getting my vote. And, midterms are coming up.
I think it's going to be way before midterms. Let me give you a perfect example.
I
I live in,
agree. I
yeah,
agree.
I understand. I live in Bal Harbour. Look where I live. I would say 30% of the condominium is Canadians. They are fuming. They are fuming.
Yeah.
So they said, you know what? We own the condominiums. We're going to pay, but we're not going to come back. They had their family saying, why should we spend money here? Why should we come all the time? They're not coming in. And that's going to have a huge impact on the economy because Canadians and Europeans were seeing as someone who would buy the condos post that condo law that passed that made people sell their condominiums. So they're like, listen, they need these people and they're not coming in. And they're like, Washington said, if you go to Canada now, if you watch BBC or the Canadian TV, you will see the Canadians are extremely nationalistic. They're not selling. They're not, the Canadians are like, we're not buying anything Americans. But I'm going to give you a perfect example. It's not just the Democrats or even average Republicans, but even to the right, the senator from Louisiana, Senator Kennedy, I don't agree with that 95% of the stuff he says, right? But I love the way he speaks. That Louisiana accent. Well, doggone it. I just
all made up. He's so fake.
I love that accent. But let me tell you about that accent.
All made up.
He made a comment. He said, tariffs are like whiskey. Right? Those are facts. They're like whiskey. A good shot of whiskey is okay. We could handle it, right? But if you drink a lot of that whiskey, you're going to be drunk as a goat and you're just going to destroy yourself. And he was referring to the tariffs. He was saying basically, I hope you know what you're doing. Because if you're going to go in and you're going to scare people, it may not necessarily work because what you saw 5 days ago, and we did discuss you and I years ago, Vicky, a couple of years ago, that, these Asiatic nations are adversaries, but at the end, they're Asians. They share language, history, culture. And I think all of those similarities will override your differences, very much like the French and the British did by the latter mid 19th century. And you saw Japan, Korea, and China saying, okay, we need to work something out. We need to work something out. You have Indonesia, Vietnam.
This is the reason I think that this is so dangerous because
it's too dangerous. Yeah.
What you're doing is literally handing the world to China on a plate and saying,
and just Asia, not just China, Asia as a whole. Yeah,
but
yeah, particular, yes,
China.
Yes.
It's not.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I see what you're saying. Yes, you're correct.
I think the problem that Trump and his people didn't think about, or maybe they thought about it and they don't care, which is even more worrisome, is that, how do you want to actually get this back? i.e., you've made this huge announcement. You've made, everybody, the world, and literally the world economy plunder, and everybody's hurting. And how do you want to rectify that? What are you going to say? You're going to say, okay, we're making little deals. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I mean, the problem also, Mitra, is how often, like we said before, do you cry wolf? Are these, and I have a question for you. I don't know the answer to this.
Sure.
Does the president have the right alone to make this happen? I mean, he just announced it. Nothing has happened yet because, but I wonder, doesn't it take an act of
Used to. It used to, because remember, they had the right, the Congress had to approve it. I think it was with George Bush that the Congress gave him carte blanche. So now you have senators saying you need to take that back. Only Congress can say you're going to have tariffs. Only Congress. That is why it was yesterday that 51 senators, all Democrats and 4 Republicans, got together and say, you're not allowed to put tariffs on Canada. It was symbolic. because
No, but that was only against Canada,
no, I
not against.
understand. No. The point is, it's only
Okay.
symbolic because in the past it was the Senate that decided. So now they're basically. I wonder if this will push the people to come and say, "Okay, we are going to take the law back and give it to the Senate." So I think you may see that. You may see, if it Monday, if it's for the next few days, it's like this. And imagine the political ramifications. I was listening to this reporter in what do you call it, Middle Eastern news, and the gentleman was saying, "Well, who the heck wants to go to war now? You go to war, that's it.
Exactly.
You're done.
Yes,
you're done.
Exactly.
I mean, if you go to war now, you're kaput."
All right, so let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So, okay, here's the question. Is what he's doing really smart or is it really stupid?
Stupid. It's interesting you should say that. The region, the MENA region, parts of Asia, it's gossip versus, that you're much more smarter than I. You have the gossip, you have the conspiracy, you have the truth. I understand the basis of his argument. He doesn't care for the 1980s Keynesian theory. He wants to go back. For me, it is an extremely dangerous way of doing it. The benefits do not outweigh the cost. In other words, it's too expensive. So I think it's extremely dangerous because I feel, whether you disagree with me or not, we no longer exercise the economic, military, political power of the past. You have a United States that, whether you think it's fair or not, is not respected or feared or trusted for that matter, particularly for the past several years. People are fed up. They're fed up being bullied. And there's United States saying, "I'm going to do this, and you have to do what I say." Well, it's okay if you were the big guy in the playground. But now you have a bunch of other kids in the playground. You have the Chinese, you have the Indians, you have also little ones, little bully guys, but if they unite, you also have theirs. So to be honest with you, the European Union does a lot of talks. I'm not sure how far they're going to go, but I think he chose that as a negotiation method. And I think the only way he's going to get out of this mess is two ways. Either the Senate steps in and says, "You have no authority, we're going to take it back." Or number two, one or two smaller nations, I don't know, like Guatemala, and I don't know, choose a small nation like Belize, whatever, Liechtenstein. I don't even know what brings Liechtenstein. What do they export to our country? Says,
point. That's not the point.
Says, "Okay, I'm going to agree." And then the president could use that, say, "Well, look, I got these two countries."
That's not the point I was making. The point I was making is
he smart or is he really daft?
I get it. Wait a minute. Yeah. The U.S. all over the world, the U.S.
is
the biggest buyer of goods, if you will. We outdo Canada and Latin America and South America and Middle East, etc. We buy a lot of goods. So my question again is, was this a stupid move or was it a smart move? Because I think what he's literally doing is putting everybody also on notice, saying, "You're not going to look." Remember, we agreed that, the tariffs probably were not very balanced. Okay, we got that. But now what will happen? Let's just say,
okay.
China wants to send their dishwashers to us. And we say, okay, now it's you have to pay 30% more or whatever. Or no, they say to us, we have to pay 30% more. And we say, no, forget it. We don't want them anymore. We'll get them from somewhere else. What happens then? What if we get the dishwasher from, I don't know.
Okay.
Where else?
I'm going to tell you why it was daft and it's dangerous for three reasons. Number one, it's because when the economy tanks, no one has any money to buy anything. So we are no longer the market. That's number one. Number two.
It's the world, not just us. It's the
No,
world.
no, but exactly. But particularly the US. So if they don't bring it here, they don't need the US. So the US will go down. Number two.
That's the whole, but Mitra, sorry.
Let me finish and then you can say if I'm wrong.
That's the whole point of Trump saying if it's too expensive, we'll manufacture it here like we used to do.
I'm going to tell you why it's wrong for the number two, so allow me to finish. That's number one. Number two is that we're not going to buy it from China. Don't buy it from China. I'm going to buy it from Germany. Great. Go buy it from Germany. But you're putting tariffs on Germany as well. Okay. So it's going to be more. But here's the problem. I'm going to buy from a country that I don't have tariffs on. Okay. I don't know where. No matter what you buy, one way or another, it's going to be tariff because one way or another, that piece is connected to China. We don't produce ourselves. So no one nation produces everything per se. What China has done, and brilliantly, has done two things. It controls the manufacturing routes, the distribution routes, which allows them to decide what they want to charge. And two, it has invested in not just in the ports, but companies. Remember, US is the biggest partner. It's not the biggest buyer of China. It's a whole continent. China's biggest trading is in Asia. So it has Asia. It could survive on Asia. And that's so true. When you,
their biggest export is to the US, Mitra.
No, you're talking one country. I'm talking as a region. And then so it's like Germany, but compared to Europe, you're talking about one country. I'm talking about a continent. So let's say 20% comes to the United States. 80% goes someplace else. And when you do that, then they're going to make your life a living hell because you need to get your goods out of the ports they own and lease. So that is why it was so dangerous, because they control the distribution factor. So if you want to take it out, they will make sure you pay hell. And no matter.
Okay, wait a minute. Now, okay, stop a minute. Because first of all, the U.S. is China's number one export. So they have the most
country.
That's not the point. The point is that you can take all the other countries in Asia, but U.S. export is still larger than Mongolia and Thailand and all the rest of that stuff. It's still the biggest for China.
But it's only the biggest if you could afford it. That is why they're shifting.
The point is, and this is what Trump was saying, is that, okay, if we don't want to have your dishwashers, is what I was saying, we will manufacture them at home.
You can't do it at home. You don't have to.
Please finish.
Oh, sorry, I apologize for that. Sorry.
You can manufacture them if you create some sort of alliance with Mexico and Canada. Then you can. Okay, so here's the problem with that again. You think this is the first time this has happened in human history? You need to go back to 10th, 11th, 12th century, see what was going on. Global trade is nothing new. The Silk Road in itself was there, but the speed is faster now. So if the United States wants to manufacture something, great. I'm not going to buy it from China. I'm going to buy it from Mexico and Canada. Great. So if you want to buy a manufacturing, unless Mexico and Canada make every piece of that washing machine at home, I'm not talking about assembly. I'm talking the raw materials. You're going to need China because those materials are coming either directly from the ports that China leases or owns, or the materials are directly tied to China, either via investment in those countries. So, for example, if it's technology, let's say I'm going to build my own John Deere. I'm just using that as an example. Okay, John Deere. Well, you have the tires, you have the metal, you have the aluminum, you have I'm just making titanium, whatever that tires are made of. Those things, I'm not going to buy it from China. No problem. I'm going to get it from Japan. I'm going to buy it from Germany, and I'm going to buy it from France, right? Great. But if one part of those things, one way or another, is connected to China, either because of the ports, either because of technology, or the quality. That was the point with China.
China
You said
realized
John
long
Deere as
ago.
an example. You said
I'm
John
just
Deere.
using, no, I'm just using, well, no, I
John Deere is
understand.
a bad example because we manufacture John
No,
Deere.
no, no, no. I'm just saying as an example. But even if you manufacture it, we put it together. The parts come someplace else. It's sort of like I was watching the
All right, then take something else because we're not talking about
tissue,
dishwashers.
brassiere. Let's say I'm using on a brassiere.
No, dude, what he was talking about was major things like
Okay, computer,
automobiles,
laptop.
computers, whatever.
Oh, automobiles are perfect. Okay, I was watching. Was it British BBC or France 24? I apologize, I forgot. And this car, but it was the famous American car, the big one. It's like 80,000. 75% is created in the US, put together, everything. But that 25% comes from other countries.
Yeah, of course,
Not
because we're a global economy.
right. So even those pieces that were melted here, even those pieces that were
we all know that. We all know that. The point what I'm trying to say, and I understand that.
Yeah.
Not the point I was trying to say, because I was trying to figure out why Trump is doing it. So,
well, I think it's China. I think it's going from.
If you look at a Tesla.
Yes.
A Tesla is made up of three things: the car, metal or whatever it is, the battery inside, and the computer. Three things. They're all made in the US or they're made in Germany or wherever, depending on where the manufacturing site is. He just opened a huge manufacturing site in Germany. So like what you were saying, as we advance more and more, but I don't think Trump is thinking like that. Will we need all those bits and pieces? I don't know. But going back,
you're talking technological. Absolutely, I understand that.
No, but I think we're talking about the same thing. But look, we have like 5 minutes left. But my question again to you was, is this incredibly stupid or incredibly smart?
I don't think you can look at it as stupid or smart. I think that would depend on your interpretation of stupid and smart. I'm going to make it very clear on that. That's very the way it is. Because look, it's interesting. The senator was saying this will take some time for it to come effect in the terms of benefiting. But people in the United States in particular, the majority of the people don't have the patience for the future. That's just the way we are. And I always say, look at the binge TV. We can't even wait 1 week. Remember the 80s? Every week I used to love waiting for Dynasty. Remember? Or Dallas. Or, love. Every week was like a share, right? Today, we don't have that patience. I want to see it all the way. You're like, well, wait a minute. We don't have that patience. So from that perspective, it was not smart because you didn't prepare the public. You should have, I think.
I agree with you. That's what I said.
The way preparing, I think it was not wise. The method it was came out.
And prepare the countries.
The country. You should have came up and said, you should have the fireside chat. Like Jimmy or whomever. Right? Look, we're being shafted. Excuse my language. This is what's going on. I want to prepare you. It's going to be tough, but we could do it. We're Americans. You would have prepared. But if you're turning on television and you're just firing left and right everyone.
Yeah.
And they fired more people from the Human Services Office and from,
and
you are creating an environment of chaos that just panicked the public more. There is no need to panic the public. There's no need to do that.
What I think we're saying. I think so. We're going to wrap it up because we're out of time. But what I think we're trying to say is tariffs, yay, nay, I don't know. But the way they're doing things, and it hasn't even been 3 months, Mitra. They wiped out like 10 or 11 trillion dollars. $11 trillion was wiped out in 2 days. And I think there could have been a better way to do it. I think the firings and the change of the different businesses. Have been
I don't think this was the time. I don't think you should have done it now. I understand. I don't think you should have done that because Europe is angry about Ukraine. We're telling them, get lost. You have to do it on your own. So they have that. And now you have this, so they have no choice but that. So they're not gonna they have to do something because their own people. Asia is very angry. And so Middle East is like, you may have a bunch of Arab leaders saying, woohoo, okay, whatever. What do you bring it in from Saudi Arabia other than oil? What are you bringing in from UAE? What do they import to the US? Nothing. So, for the lack of a better term. But, 38% tariffs on Syria. What the hell are the Syrians exporting to the US? Whatever. So I think the manner they did it made it much, much worse.
I agree.
So, and I think, when you have people come and say, this is crazy, why would you give your internal adversaries more ammunition to take you out in terms of politics? He doesn't need that right now.
Let's leave it on that note, because that's a good note to leave it on. Yeah. I think let's see what happens Monday and Tuesday. I have a feeling, and I'm having a praying feeling that
it'll balance out. People will calm down. People may calm down.
People start saying, we made a deal here, we made a deal here. Calm the markets. All right, Mitra,
maybe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.